Welcome beyond the Reiki Gateway. I'm your host, Andrea Kennedy. Like countless others, Reiki found me when I wasn't even looking, and then it ignited a whole new world of questions. This podcast explores topics of interest for the spiritually curious. Join me for discussions and special guests on subjects such as past lives, crystal healing, spiritual awakening, ascension, energy healing, and more, all to assist and inspire you along your unique soul's journey. This episode is sponsored by Mainstream Reiki, offering live and online Reiki classes and a membership community to help Reiki practitioners succeed and grow in their practice. Find out more at mainstreamreiki.com. Welcome to Beyond the Reiki Gateway. I'm Andrea Kennedy, your host today with a special guest that I have for you. Her name is Jill Militzer. Jill has been a Reiki Master Teacher and intuitive practitioner for more than 12 years and has studied with world-renowned psychic mediums from the Arthur Findlay College in the United Kingdom. As a shamanic practitioner, she's deepened her awareness of earth wisdom and how it relates to holistic balance. A few of her offerings include shamanic classes, animal communication sessions, and her own podcast called Hello Inner You, which she describes as an artistically intuitive podcast where all things mystical creatively mix and mingle. I love that description, Jill. Welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andrea. It's great to be here.
I wanted to just touch on before we really dive into things here, your podcast. Now, how long have you been producing your show?
We hit 1 year in February, so I'm kind of a newbie, but it feels like I've been doing it for a really long time. I fell into it, and it's so much fun, and I'm really enjoying the process.
Oh, that's fantastic. I was curious, what do you like most about it?
I really enjoy having like-minded people on because it started out, maybe you can relate to this with solo episodes, and then you're creating your content based on what you enjoy. And I felt like at that time, I knew that if I put that out there, I would get the attention of other people who might also feel the same way. Because again, I think spiritual people are always looking to expand their tribe and find people who can have conversations in a really intelligent and inspirational way. And I found that, and people kind of began to contact me, and then the conversations sort of began that way. And then I had guests on early on, and they continue. So I'm grateful because it just keeps everything really fresh and interesting. And I learn something every time I interview somebody. I'm probably going to learn something today as well. And so I love that because I'm continually expanding my own skills and awareness. And that's a big reason why the podcast was so important for me, especially since we are so virtual these days. It's just nice to be able to almost reach across the world to find people who have the same interests and the same types of, I want to say, knowledge that can be shared so that we can all expand collectively. That's the big push behind doing the podcast.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think probably my favorite thing is all the people that I have met as a result, and just making those connections, kind of like what you're saying. But it's funny you mentioned technology because everything has changed. When
100%.
I was young, you could probably relate. If you were interested in anything that they didn't teach in school, where could you really go? I mean, we went to the public library, and the resources there were pretty limited back then on fun things like this. But today, all of us in this community that are curious about spiritual things have these podcasts that are out there as a resource and can meet virtually or not, but meet real people who share their ideas, share their questions, and are seekers like them, which I think, podcasts, as you know, a variety of categories, right? The genres are really unlimited. But I think for the spiritual community, there's a special appeal for podcasts. And you touched on it too, because it's people from all over the world. And, podcasts are great. But for our community interested in spiritual topics, I think it's even more special to be able to have a podcast and more of them, to tune into to get the different perspectives. Because I think in the old days we were kind of going alone.
Yeah. It was more isolating. And talking about when we were younger, I mean, I remember we were talking about this in our family, just having a pen pal on the other side of the world to share experiences with, and be very excited to hear that, oh, there's somebody your age who's thinking the same thing. How cool. But you had to write a letter and put it in the snail mail to get it going. And now we just have this ability to be able to reach anywhere, and again have these conversations that I think are now so important. They've always been important, let's be clear. I mean, we've always needed to know that we are more than just the here and now. We've always wanted, our soul has wanted that, but I feel now the energy of the planet, of the universe, is more in sync with people listening and understanding. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I totally do. And I love your example about the pen pals because I remember that, from when I was a kid, that whole idea was like so cool.
It was.
But wow, yeah, things are so different. Oh, it's just remarkable. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so let's shift from technology then back to the natural world. So you offer shamanic workshops, shamanic classes and consultations, things like this. And so I want to talk to you about what led you into that because you've been a Reiki Master Teacher, I think, for a number of years. So if you could share a little bit about, how you came in to this spiritual world and I guess a little bit of your breadcrumb trail for us.
Sure.
But I definitely want to also really spend some time on your shamanic work.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for setting that up so beautifully, because I feel like the interest that people have in this moment, there's always that backstory, like you said, that crumb trail. And for me, Reiki, I found that a lot. I think, like, even in your intro to your show, you found it at a time when you didn't even know you needed it. And it was at a time when I didn't know even what Reiki meant. And I remember asking my chiropractor at the time, "Do you know what Reiki is?" And he was like, "Is that Rolfing?" I said, "No, I think that's different." And we were having this like very disconnected conversation. I said, "No, I don't think that's what it is." Now that just came in. Why Reiki? Something was calling to me. So my intuition was starting to get my attention. I was starting to listen. And I found somebody in my hometown who was a Reiki practitioner and also was a massage therapist. And I find a lot of that sometimes can go hand in hand. At least it did back then. And so for me, when I had my first Reiki session, everything changed. Everything changed. I obviously blew open some doors that needed to be opened, and it cleared a lot of stuff. And I feel like that was my first moment that I began to understand, hey, I can step into my own power and be aware of what I need to connect with my intuition. And this is a beautiful way to do it because it's that connecting with universal life force energy, which is again everywhere, but we're systematically connecting with that in Reiki, and it feels so natural and so beautiful. So I began to learn it, and I went through all of the levels pretty much in succession. It didn't take me that long. I think I did it within a year, and it felt natural for me and it felt good. And I began working with it. As soon as that happened, I felt the door open to animal communication. And I began listening more intently to my animals and feeling like, something's going on here. But again, that has a backstory too. I was a veterinary assistant for almost 5 years, and I was working with animals one on one. And it felt like the animal component was always there in my life anyway. So when Reiki came in, everything just amplified. I feel like Reiki was like, the speakers in my life. It just amplified everything. So I began working with animal communication. I became an animal Reiki practitioner. I worked with a person who worked in conjunction with Reiki and helped with understanding how to pull those messages through. And that was the beginning. How I got into shamanism, once all of those doors opened, I took a class. It was a shamanic journey class. And I thought, aha, here it is. We're pulling in the premise that spirit is in everything. We are all spirit. And shamanism is all about honoring that. So that became my new door that opened. And I have begun to continue to expand it and work with it and take more classes and workshops and certifications to amplify that. That's how the shamanism part of it came in. But I know you probably have more questions about that. But that was the beginning.
So it's all started with a journeying class. Is that correct?
Yeah, it became the doorway into focusing meditation, which is a shamanic journey, is truly going inward, and you're doing it in a very intentional way to connect with spirit guides, animal totems, nature spirits, nature allies is what I call them, to be very connected to the messages that you need to hear in your life right now. It's almost like the fast track to understanding your purpose in your life right now, because it's very difficult to do a lot of these techniques and think that you can cover all the bases all at once. It's complicated. Your life's complicated. You have a lot of layers to your life. And I feel like when you're getting into some of these modalities, you're being shown what you need to be shown in the moment in your life that's the most important, that you need to concentrate on to bring yourself into alignment with what is for your highest good. And that's what shamanic journeys can do. But after that happened, I took a Moon Aiki course, and Moon Aiki is a whole different system. They're the 9 great rites of Be As Thou Art. And what that means is each component of the Moon Aiki rites helps you to focus and work with different archetypes and energy systems that continue to open you up and connect a lot with earth wisdom. And even the universe, the cosmos, it connects you, so as above, so as below. We are connecting all of it. So Reiki, again, is everywhere. That is the all, to me, that's my heart, because it makes me understand how we are all coming from the same source, and we can connect with that source now. And then the shamanism portion of that, or the principles of shamanism, continue to connect you more fully and more, I guess I want to say, more mindfully with everything that's around you in this life, because we're living an earth life right now. I mean, we are spiritual beings, but we're here in this life. So how can we connect with what's around us so that it opens us up more? And that's what shamanism can do. But just to be clear, people throw the word shaman around. I don't. It's very sacred. This comes from indigenous cultures. Shamanic practitioner is taking those principles from the teachings that have been handed down from the shamans, and they've been handing it over to the people in the West to say, hey, wake up, guys. We all need to get on the same page. And that's what they're doing. So calling yourself here in the West a shaman would be incorrect. Honor the indigenous cultures, the shamans, which are generational, And shamanic practitioner like me is taking those principles that are being shared and gifted to us and honoring them in their name.
Hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that you offered that because, yeah, I think that that's well said, for sure. Um, it's bringing us back to, who we are here on the planet, the natural world, the cycles of the world. Um, and I think in a time that we're going through right now, right? This huge change on the planet. I think so many people are really looking up, aren't they? Are you
They are.
finding that? They're looking
Yes.
up and out, to the galaxies and to, maybe their soul's origin or something in some faraway galaxy. And it makes me a little sad sometimes, I'll say, that it seems like people are always looking, maybe it's the grass is greener or whatever, on the other side. But regardless of where our soul originates or where we've had most of our lives, you bring up such a wonderful truth. And that is, we are walking the earth right now.
Right.
And we're only going to have this lifetime for so many years, and so I like the invitation to really go deeper with that and kind of recommit
Right.
to being here on the planet because we're obviously here for purpose, for sure.
Well said. That also is very well said because you can't, if you get too, I like to say woo woo, where you're going up 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 all the time. It's fun, it feels great. You're floating around in that psychic soup of, oneness that's like up high, and that's where the archangels are, and the higher dimensions just make you feel so floaty and so, oh, it's so fantastic. What a great escape, right? We connect with that. But we also have to be grounded, and we have to be aware of what's beneath our feet because we are the stewards of this place. We are the ones, again, who are going to leave it for the grandkids and those grandkids and so on. Hopefully, I mean, I think so. And in doing that and in that message, you have to be very connected to what you can be in this moment and in this life, which I just want to touch on this as well. When you get into shamanism, you talk a lot, the conversation within it is how can you pull the earth wisdom and the cosmic connection? How can you get to the center point? And like in Reiki, where's your connection? Your heart chakra, your fulcrum in your body is, to me, your heart chakra. And so when you're pulling the energies within your chakra system and you're clearing your chakras and you're doing Reiki and you're clearing the energy in your auric field and you're connecting with this bigger, greater feeling of I am more than this, you realize that the heart chakra is where compassion and understanding for every single living thing comes from. How do you nurture that? You nurture that through connecting with the earth, connecting with your daily life. How do you live your daily life? Shamanism is all about if you're going to walk your walk, talk it, walk it, put it all together because it's a lifestyle, it's an understanding. And when you can do that, you become more compassionate, you become more aware, you can connect with people on a deeper level, you can understand your animals better, you can understand what's going on in your backyard, you see things more clearly. It's almost like it becomes like technicolor. And I think that's the beautiful part of shamanic principles is it helps you to understand that on a deeper level. But you mentioned, Andrea, something uh, about connecting with the cosmos, not going up too high, and it can feel very disconnected. That's true. You feel like it's almost like a sci-fi movie. Like, well, where are we going with that? Like, it feels almost lonely to say that we're going to go up into the galaxies. However, I've also worked and been gifted the Nusta Carpe rights. You have the Munaiki rights, and then you have the Nusta Carpe rights. Nusta Carpe rights are all about the divine feminine and working with the star systems, the energy of the Pleiades and all of the star systems that are We are stardust. We are all stardust, I believe. And we remember that. Again, eons ago, it's in our DNA, but it's a part of us. So when we connect up, we're getting downloads of information intuitively that can help us connect to what's below the earth. And it goes into it's one big circle. And so if you're connecting up, it helps connect the heart chakra and then the earth wisdom. So it's kind of like that prana tube, what's coming in your crown, going down through your chakras, going into the earth, coming up, going through your crown. So it's like this constant, you almost surge the energy through yourself more intentionally when you understand that we are all connected in a more profound, energetic way. Galaxies, our body, and then the earth. So I hope that helps.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And yeah, I think it all comes down to balance, right?
Right.
Because, yeah, going out there and exploring up, as I had said, yeah, that's wonderful. But we can't be anywhere too much,
Exactly.
from my perspective. And that's all about the balance because you can get the greatest inspirations and, as you said, downloads or whatever we want to call that, inspiration, guidance, whatever that is. But unless you embody that, unless you bring that to a level where you can work with it here, what's the real, what's the value? Where's the
What's the
value
value?
in
What's the
that?
point?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. It almost feels like you're just playing a game. It's almost like you're just playing a game and you put the game away and you don't know how to connect the dots. And I think that's important to talk about too, because people always ask, well, how do you incorporate shamanic principles into your daily life? What does it mean? I mean, I would love to sit on a mountaintop and just be in lotus and meditate all day. That'd be fantastic, where I don't have to like figure out what to make for dinner. If I get asked that question one more time, what is for dinner? Everyone knows everyone knows what I like to eat. We can all pull together and make dinner together. We have to remember that our role in life is much more than what our multitasks of the daily grind are. Yes, we're still going to have to make dinner. Hopefully, it'll be a healthy dinner. Hopefully, we'll have good conversation. Hopefully, we'll get to share our day. So, you have those components. But in terms of how do you bring in the principles of shamanism to like add to that, kind of like a la carte, it takes a little bit of understanding that there are a few things you can do. And some of those things I teach in the workshops and classes that I offer. And one really fun activity to do is creating a despacho. And a despacho is a gift that you give to the earth. It's a way to honor the earth and your surroundings. And you create a little present made out of a piece of paper and all organic materials like flowers and sweets like marshmallows and candies and things that are biodegradable that you can then put together in a bundle, and you either burn it or bury it in your yard safely. And you honor the earth that way. And shamans have been doing this for forever. And that is a gift that it makes you feel so good. I did it when I was in my internship for shamanic practitioner training, and it created such a cohesive way to not only be together with my other fellow seekers and students and classmates, but we really we made a mandala out of everything, and we created this gift, and we collectively put it on the earth, and it felt so good. And what happens when you do that is you get the attention of all of the nature allies. They're like, oh, that person likes our energy. They're connecting with us. Tree spirits, plant energy. It gets the intuitive attention of the earth, and they then will connect with your energy more fully. So these principles can be not only really fun, they're extremely important and can deepen your awareness in ways that I don't think people really understand how cool it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, that's really fascinating. And you know, when you were talking about it, I was thinking about the earth and how we really take it for granted, don't we? I
Yeah,
mean, so often we don't even think about it, but you know, when we get up in the morning and we put our feet on the floor and we're standing there, we think we're being still, or if we're just sitting here, we're talking, we're on the show together right now, and it's like we're just sitting still. We are hurtling through space and spinning on an axis here. You know,
right.
isn't it amazing
It is.
how the earth operates? I mean, just that one thing. And then you take into account all of the plant life and the animal life and the cycles and the webs of diversity that all are interconnected and rely on each other. I mean, it is miraculous. It
You're
is
speaking my
miraculous.
language. Andrea, you're speaking my I mean, we all have that language, right? It's that
Yes.
connection to something bigger. And when you're talking about waking up in the morning, you look, you pull your curtains apart and maybe you're lifting your blinds and you're kind of yawning, getting ready for the day. Pay attention to what you see. The first bird you see, again, you can see my beautiful birds behind me in the stained glass. I have a lot of connection with bird wisdom, bird medicine, as they say. And that's the wisdom of what's in your backyard. What is, even if you rent, it's your territory where you live, right? Look out into the world in that moment and see what you see and see how it makes you feel. That's the intuitive connection to nature. And that is an ally for you in your life that you might need in that moment. And I'll give you an example, which I think is so cool. I was coming out into my kitchen about to make coffee, and I opened my curtains above my kitchen sink, and there's the most beautiful hawk sitting on my fence. It's just a huge red-tailed hawk, huge. I mean, just, they're big, but this one was really big. And the interesting thing about that was this hawk was so close to my house, which, you could get your linear thinking in there and really dissect this, but I was trying not to do that. It was very close to my house. It was very still. It wasn't, it didn't look like it was hunting. It was just hanging out. And it looked at me and it did one of those, like, it's like this and it goes like this. And I'm going, oh. And it just did one of those. And I thought, are you looking at me? Hey, are you looking at me, Hawk? Right away, my mind went to, who on the other side could this be giving me a message? And then I thought, no, 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 no. Let's just melt in with the energy of Hawk. Let's think about what Hawk might represent to me in this moment. Look it up later. Look up what the medicine means later. But in this moment, feel what that feels like and see how you connected. And when I did that, I got chills, all over body chills, because you're really connecting with their energy. And they gave you something in that moment, even though it's through your window. You didn't have to physically touch them. They're giving their energy to you as they're connecting with you. And you walk away from that and you go, I feel like maybe I don't need coffee this morning. Like, it felt very nurturing and I felt very different because I had that moment with this beautiful bird. And the minute I wanted to take my phone to take a picture of this bird, it flew off, because it wasn't
Yes.
supposed to be, this wasn't a social media moment, right? This was a connection with me. And I felt like I have to honor that. So honor those moments and experiences you might have. It can be a sparrow, it can be any bird in your yard, or any little critter running around. They offer beautiful messages. Just pay attention.
Yeah. Well, and you had mentioned, you know, how to use the shamanic principles in your own life. Like, what would that look like? Well, right there is an amazing example that you just shared, you know, and
Right.
I think often if we just hit the pause button, getting out of our automatic routine, you know, that we would normally do, and like you said, observe, you know, look and see
Observe.
what's around you, um,
Mm-hmm.
it can shift everything when we
It
start
can.
to do that. Just that one thing, that one little thing.
Yeah, and
It's just
it takes you
remarkable.
it takes you further down the road of connecting. It makes you actually want to put your shoes on and go outside for a walk. It might make you want to go outside and tend to your plants, because that little moment of connecting with that bird is calling you outside. They're trying to get you outside. And then you take the journey out your door. It's almost like a shamanic journey takes you, because when you're doing a shamanic journey, you start in your meditative space, you visualize where you are in your space where you're doing this meditation, and you visualize going out your front door. And as you're walking out your front door, you visualize the scene changing and you're suddenly in a forest. And then you look down and you're on a beautiful wooded path, and that's taking you into the forest deeper. And that's what shamanic principles can do. It takes you on a meditative journey within focus in the shamanic journey formally, but it also in daily waking can take you outside of your house in the same way, taking you out on a walk and connecting you with something you would not have seen. And as an example, one day that happened to me. And on my walk that day, I saw 10 wild turkeys cross my path. I looked up and I saw a huge, beautiful crow sort of, speaking its language to other birds up on its perch. And I was connecting with just being a part of it, like being in that energy of connecting. I kept walking and I thought, man, this is a cool day. I didn't expect this. And as I continue through my walk, I see, the sandhill cranes are in another person's yard and they're just kind of doing their thing. And I thought, what a day. Am I lucky? Now imagine, had I not decided to go for my walk that day, I wouldn't have been able to connect. And I think that's just a way to bring it back to your daily routine. It's great to do the Despacho things, the activities. Another one is creating what's called an Apacheta. Apachetas are power spots that you can create in nature where you're stacking rocks that are, around the area, and you put intention into each rock, and you put prayer and honor the earth, and you create that power spot. One of my shamanic teachers, she would call her outdoor space her office, where she would leave her house every day and go to her office. And it was simply a beautiful urban park system that was near her home, and it had a stream, and she created an Apacheta in that spot. And when we would work together, I would see that Apacheta and I would think, wow, that's gorgeous. One day the Apacheta was decimated. It was just like everything was pushed over. And I asked her and I said, what happened? Aren't you upset that somebody knocked it over? And she said, no, just reorganizes the energy. The energy can't be destroyed, right? Your intentions can be reconfigured just like that power spot can be. It's just a way to focus your love for the earth, though, is what that activity can do for you. So again, these are certain things that we talk about within shamanism that can really add to your life and be activities that call you to being able to pay attention a little bit more in a focused way.
Hello, it's Andrea, and in addition to being your host here at the podcast, I'm the founder of Mainstream Reiki, where bringing Reiki further into the mainstream is my mission. I offer quality Reiki classes of all levels to students attending live from around the world. And I've built a membership community as well to help Reiki people connect with each other through discussions, events, and Reiki practice. So if you're considering learning Reiki, or you already have, I invite you to visit mainstreamreiki.com to discover your next step in your Reiki journey. Thank you. And now, back to the show. And then when you tuned into the hawk, what stood out to me in that too, that I wanted to just sort of highlight, is that you didn't run for the book or the app on your phone, or whatever. What does the hawk mean, which I think a lot of people do. But I just really want to emphasize what your go-to was, and that was tuning in. And what does this mean for me in this moment? You said the words "in this moment," because what the hawk had for you that day could be different in 6 months or something, right? And
Right.
it really, I think, helps us be in the present moment. And sure, we can look things up in a book or online, but that's another person's interpretation, or it could be many people's interpretation in agreement. You know, there are these themes and that kind of thing. But to ask yourself first and to go within first, I think is just a wonderful practice because we're coming back to trusting ourselves, our own discernment, our own intuition, and our own connection. And then we're visiting that first. We're able to perhaps settle in to and become comfortable with, yes, this is what this means for me before we go outside of ourselves and then perhaps look in the book. And isn't that something where then you go to the authority in print, right?
Right.
And you look it up, but you've already made up your mind as to what your experience was. So then you can bring that and compare and contrast. And again, use your inner discernment to
Yeah.
say, yes, mine was similar to that, but different in these aspects. And that's why, so you can really go deep with these things. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just love that you said that because
Yeah.
I think, you know, I've touched on it earlier and I'd love to hear your thoughts about this time that we're in on the planet right now.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's very, I mean, there is no shortage of things to look at, to
Maybe like reminding or
escape.
you're, oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
escaping, right? And so, or
Mm-hmm.
what I would say is,
Disconnecting.
yes. And
That's,
so
it's,
we have so many places that we can go and of every sort of value, right?
mm-hmm.
And our attention, I think, is perhaps one of the most precious, and I'm even going to, this is a weird word, but I'm going to say commodity that we have. And the reason I say commodity is because there are so many companies out there that pay a lot of money to get your attention. And so, what that tells us, right, is our attention is precious. And why is that precious, right? Because
Really
where
well,
we put
yeah.
our intention is what we're focusing on, what we're connecting with, and what we're internalizing, all of that. That is really where our power is. And I think that in this day and age, with all of that, with all of the noise and all of the different places we can spend our attention, I think perhaps we need to shake all that off. And it's a call to put the attention inward. And
Inward.
that's what
Right.
I'm hearing from you too with the shamanic practices. So many paths, I think, many modalities, many practices, I think, and are doing that for us. And maybe that's to reach more people, to call
Oh,
us
agreed.
home to the same
Uh,
place.
agreed, Andrea. You said so many good things in there. One that stands out is how do we do that for ourselves again? Because shamanism may be interesting to one person, maybe not to another, but yoga might be, Reiki might be, right? There are a lot of modalities, energy work, as we're calling it too, that can pull us into that place of connecting inward. And what I find to be really interesting too is the more you go inward with the things that I'm talking about today, you will find that you don't need to fill in with the noise as much. Again, it doesn't mean you become boring. It doesn't mean your personality changes. I'm a pretty chatty Cathy. I'm a pretty outgoing person. I always have opinions. I'm not gonna stop being me, but what that can help me do is to discern what I need to intuitively before my words come out of my mouth, before I decide where I'm going to put my energy. Am I going to get upset about that one thing? Or am I going to decide, the focus here feels I don't need to do that. But what makes that shift in you? It's when you do spend a little bit of acknowledgement to go inward. And a lot of people say you have to quote do the work. It sounds hard when you say do the work, but it can be fun work. It can be uh, focused in the way that a hobby is work. If you want to get really good, and I've used this analogy a lot, I really at one time wanted to be a fantastic sculptor, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna sculpt, I'm gonna do things, and I tried it out, and I found out it takes work to learn the skills to be a really good sculptor and learn how to throw on the wheel. And my my artwork was always within drawing and sketching, and I loved it, but I thought, well, maybe I could do this over here, but it takes time to hone those skills, and that's what I'm talking about. So pick something in your life that calls to you. And how do you do that? You you get in touch, you get quiet enough. That's where Reiki came in for me. Reiki quieted that part of myself that was frenetic and constantly trying to be linear, and it shaved that off, and it created the quiet spot, and then that in that quiet spot it made me turn to look at something else that was calling to me. That's how we do this. This is the fun of the work, is just leaning into what's calling to you and seeing how it feels. And it doesn't mean that you have to stick with it your entire life, your entire career. You can play with that. You can expand into other things. It creates a more dynamic lifestyle. And then you're not going to spend a lot of time on the things that, like you said, took your attention, owned your attention, took it. Like, I like to watch potato chip shows like anybody. I like to sit and, pop the popcorn and be like, oh, here we go again in this show. Oh, what's going to happen today? And you go into that vein of ego, and that's a part of us too, but we don't like to try to feed the ego. I mean, it doesn't need any food. It's we're trying to get inward and be more aware that we don't need to lean into that. We have other things within us that can help guide our life. And intuition is where that all, you know, comes into, is listening and then going into the parts and pieces of your life that call to you to do the activities that really feed your soul. And when you do that, I find that family members pay attention and they go, huh, Jill wanted to go hiking today. Well, I didn't want to go hiking today. But then the next time I go hiking, it's like, do you want to go with me? Sure, I'll go. And so now we have, again, lead by example. Do things that you feel called to do, even if it's a little bit different within your family dynamic. Because again, this work can be kind of off-putting to some people. Some people think it's really out there and really like unrelatable. But then the more you bring it down into your daily life and use it, people pay attention and they go, well, oh, what are you doing? You go, oh, do you want to just hang out and just do this? Oh, sure. And so this becomes more integrated that into your life.
Yeah, totally. And isn't that true with, I think, I mean, it's true with Reiki. It's true, with the shamanic practices that you're talking about. I think I have to say, maybe I don't want to be a broken record, but when you go back to yourself, when you go within, when you connect that way and you create more of a balance, everything in nature seeks balance, and other people are
Yes,
no different. And so when you're in balance energetically, mentally, emotional, spiritually, um, when you're in balance energetically, you're radiating that out. And I think other people, whether you get there from Reiki, meditation, any yoga, you mentioned yoga, however that is for you. And then I think what happens is when you're in balance, that radiates outward as a frequency. And like you said, like a family member might be like, hey, what are you doing? Because they feel the balance. Some part of them resonates with that, and
exactly.
they're attracted to that. So what are you doing? Because I want to feel like I want that. And it
Yeah,
may not
and play.
even be conscious, right?
Right, right. It's in and play with that in your life. Be playful in your life. A lot of shamanism and a lot of the principles are all about laughter and not being so serious. Like I said, when someone as a meditation person, I've also certified in meditation because I've really thought, hey, am I missing something? Is there something I should be doing within my work with people? And really that work was all about letting it go. Well, what does that mean? It sounds easy, but it's tough. And so if you want to go inward, you have to almost let go at the same time so that you don't have expectations on what you think you should be doing or accomplishing, because that will set you up for disappointment. If you're just in the moment and say you're meditating, one of the big things you do is you just imagine your thoughts floating through your mind with your eyes closed, like clouds going in one ear and out the other. And you're allowing those clouds to float. Now, in those clouds, you might think about, what am I making for dinner? Oh, wait, I have to go get my oil changed on my car. That's fine. That's a part of your thoughts. Let that flow. Let that flow through. And once you allow that to flow through, you might get a memory of something in your childhood come in. Oh, that was weird. What was that? Let that cloud float by. So, see, this is the process that you have to allow yourself to be in this moment, to see what comes up and just let it go. Don't put the expectations on it. And shamanism is, again, all about that lightheartedness and laughter. Think about maybe the pictures that you've seen of people in indigenous cultures and or in other parts of the world who are supposed spiritual people. What are they doing? You see a lot of laughter. You see a lot of not taking things so seriously. That energy is all about heightening your energy. And here in the West, we have a tendency to get really serious about it. And we have to be really like, okay, everybody get ready. Get your mat on the floor. Everybody got the mat on the floor? Sit down. Close your eyes. Here we go. And it's pressure. And you think, oh no, I'm not going to be able to do this. And I think you can shave a lot of that off with just not taking it so seriously. Crack a joke in your head, right? Be aware that the levity that you create in your life is going to transcend all of that dense energy that you put on yourself for those expectations. And earth wisdom, these principles, Reiki, the energy of just being, is so important. And I wanted to mention too, Andrea, I don't know if you did this with Reiki early on, but my big thing was self Reiki every day for myself. And it became my meditative practice. So if you're learning Reiki and you think, well, this means I have to become a practitioner and offer this for others, that's not true. You might be learning it for yourself. And so that self Reiki moment and offering that to you every day is really huge.
Yeah.
And so that can be a part of your ability to integrate other things into your life, to tap into that intuitive place, to be able to help you. Because again, this is, what's the focus here? What's the end game? We do all these modalities, but what are we doing it for? We're doing it to be able to maneuver through our life with more ease and grace. That's it. It's like when you work out, why do you work out? To get in shape. Well, these days I want to work out to get in shape so that I can get up off the floor when my dog's ball rolls under the TV stand. Like I need to get up off the floor, so I have to work out to improve my body. That's the same thing with meditative work. You have to be able to work those intuitive muscles enough so that you recognize what's coming in for your highest good and align with it quicker, so that you don't blow up when you get upset about something right away, so that you see the bird in your yard and you go, okay, I'm going to take a second and connect with that. It's more about appreciating, because as you know, and as we've talked about, the time is ticking here on earth. We're not here forever. How do we make this be more fruitful?
Yes. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Everything you shared there. And you mentioned the fun and boy, not being so serious. I really needed to hear that. So I bet some other people listening needed to hear that too. And that took me to the nature spirits and fairies
Yes.
and things like that.
Ooh,
Um,
yes.
yeah, because how does that work
Play
in
in.
to all of
Okay.
this? Yeah.
So here in this dimension, we call this the third dimension, right? And a lot of people equate. Now we're talking about what does that mean? So we're here in the third D, we 3D. We see what's in our focus and what's in real time. And then we have the fourth dimension. And the fourth dimension exists the mythological beings, the fairies, the gnomes, the leprechauns, the Pegasus, Bigfoot. Sorry. That's why we're never going to find Bigfoot, you guys. He's slipping through the portals. Fourth dimension is where all of these mythological beings kind of hang out. And then you have the fifth dimension, which is going higher. And that's our, going into this is archangels are, I think, are in the 12th. But as you go higher into the dimensions, certain beings exist there. But these dimensions overlap. So that said, when we're in the 3D world and we decide to go outside and intentionally create a fairy portal, for instance, I've done this in my yard, where you find a spot in your yard where you want to call in connecting with fairy wisdom. And what does that mean? Well, fairies are all about being stewards of the earth and connecting with our energy to intuitively give us information on how we can do that better, how we can be better caretakers of the planet. And so fairies are that being that can be our helper in this dimension overlapping ours. So when you create a fairy portal, you're honoring this area of your yard. You're intentionally saying, I want to connect with this wisdom. So you might plant flowers. You would put honey on a leaf and lay the leaf down. Maybe you would adorn it with I've made fairy furniture out of rocks and old earrings. Honestly, I do fun activities like that where I'll just kind of find my inner child and then I adorn that little place. Now, here's what happens, which is so cool. Over time, I noticed in that area, beautiful little flowers started to grow. I did not plant these flowers. They're like these little ground flowers that would start. And then the ivy and little ground cover vines were starting to grow. And everything began to grow up the tree. And then I thought, okay, here I go. I'm going to make a little door for the tree, for the portal. I'm going to put a little door on the tree to kind of say, all right, here's a door for these mythological beings to come through to connect with me, because I think they have something to say, and they do. But you have to get in that space with your imagination and your inner child wisdom. Go back to that place of what it felt like to connect with nature when you were little. We played outside. I laid on the grass and looked at the clouds for a long time. I would swing on my swing for hours, and I would play in my sandbox. These are childhood activities. But remember what that felt like when you would be called in the house for dinner and it was like 2-3 hours in your yard and you're like, where did the time go? You can still do that as an adult. It might be in a different way, of course, but you can nurture your imagination in the way that begins to open the door into the mythological fourth dimension realm where these beings can connect with you. Now, they're not going to have conversations with you like we're having. They might invoke certain feelings in you to look at something a certain way, to maybe caretake in a different way. Maybe you'll get a download that it would be a good idea to plant a vegetable garden. Well, where did that come from? Right? So you're creating the intuitive space for some of these beings to connect with you. So fairies are one, gnomes are one, leprechauns are in the mix. What's another one? Sprites are the water spirits that are a part of all natural bodies of water. And you might ask, well, how do I know this? This is interesting. As I began to hone my skills and my awareness, I leaned into what it would feel like to just muse what those conversations might be intuitively. What would that feel like? So when COVID happened, and it was just in the beginning of the pandemic, I think it was 6 months in, I was sitting at my kitchen counter one night and my family was sleeping and I was freaking out like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? This is going to be bad. And I asked Spirit, help me. Give me a message. What am I going to do? And I began to hear the messages intuitively from nature allies. And that's how they came to me. And why were they doing that? They were giving me the message to go outside and get grounded. Okay, maybe you can't go around and do things like you've been doing because of this pandemic, but the earth is going to ground your energy. Get outside. And that's what I started to do. So I began to go outside more, sitting on the lawn, right? Directly in contact with the grass and just connecting with that earth energy. And that shaved off the fear and the frenetic thinking. Well, what does that do when you're sitting on the grass? You begin to survey your land and you see what's around you. And oh, that looks like that needs a little bit of tending. I think I'll plant something there. As you begin to connect in that way, you're intuitively telling the spirit world, you're ready to listen. You're creating space for them. You're honoring the earth. And those spirits need to know that you're going to honor the earth. So you're coming from that heart-centered place. They don't care if you're upset. Of course, we're going to be upset, right? We're human. But when we go outside and we connect with their energy, they're there to help us calm down. And we're here to listen to their messages, to the higher wisdom, the tree spirit wisdom, which is incredible, plant spirit wisdom, which is amazing. Why do we go to botanical gardens? Why? Because we're connecting with the energy of the place. So remember that, like, it's all within you. And if you don't have your own yard, city parks are great. Find a beautiful tree at a city park that you connect with. Whatever calls to you, just get outside. So that's
Yeah.
the fairy wisdom, the mythological beings are there in that dimension. But the energy of everything, sky, cloud, earth, they're all around us. We have to get still enough to be able to hear it and connect. And when you can do that, you'll intuitively get messages that are for you. Because again, we can't get messages all at once for everyone everywhere. But if we start with ourselves, it can help us to do that and open ourselves up to other conversations in our life. And I think that's the big thing. And I call those people joyful creators. Joyful creators are the people like who are aware, who they're the seekers. They're the ones who are taking care of the environment. They're the ones who are spreading joy, right? Sprinkling joy and being aware of what's around them and getting into that place where you can hear, see, sense, feel intuitively what you need to be able to continue to spread the joy. So we were born joyful creators. I think we've just forgotten that that's our power. That's our place of power. And we're basically here to just spread the love, right? Because time's short. And if we can't spread the love, life's pretty dull, right? You just have to be in that space. And these are ways to do that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Wow. So before we wrap up, I mean, we've been here already. I mean, it's really flown by, Jill. But before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you about um, your connection with the nature spirits and the pandemic. You know, that you started this practice of going outside relatively early, I think, in the pandemic, from what you said.
Right.
Um, what wisdom or where did that lead you as you began that practice?
Well, what shamanism was already happening at that point, and Reiki was, a part of my life. And so all of these things were happening, but it took me into that place of these beings were individual in terms of their wisdom, and it got my attention because I thought, am I making this up? What is this? And I thought, no, 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 just hang out in the soup of it all. And so when I went outside and I connected more fully, I just began to automatic write what I was receiving. And I feel like this is where automatic writing is so important. Journaling, connecting in that way with yourself, whatever you want to call it. And when you do that, you're just basically connecting with yourself, and you're putting down your feelings. And in those feelings, I got messages. Hey, this is what this is. This is what this is. So how it was defined for the book that I wrote, which has taken 3 years because it started in the pandemic and I just finished it and I'm really proud of it. And I call them nature allies because that's how I sensed them intuitively. And what they were trying to tell me was the earth is, again, as we know it, we know what the earth is. We're duh. Okay. We get that cryptic sense of what the earth is. But do you really understand the energies of the earth? How does that connect with us inwardly? And that's what I felt and sensed I was being connected with through nature allies, were the earth has its own energy, plant spirits have their own energy, tree spirits have their own energy, and it goes on like this: clouds, the sky, even into what I call planetary cousins, which are our galactic energies up there in the cosmos, that when we look at the stars, what are we seeing? We're connecting with something. We don't know what that is, but it's a higher wisdom, and that higher wisdom is trying to connect with us. They can't really lower their energy. We have to up level ours. So if we can at least meet it in the middle, we can begin to hear how we're all connected to everything all at once, the oneness of everything. And that is the universal energy of all that is. That's Reiki. That's the
Mm-hmm.
energy of life and who we are. And so the nature allies were basically saying, but what can you do for the earth to give back? Can you do that for the earth? The awareness has to be there. When you are aware of every little creature, every living thing, this is shamanism. There is life in everything, every buzzing bee, piece of wood, leaf. We're all a part of it. So how can we work together and take care of each other?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that was kind of a theme through our time together today,
Right.
Jill. That whole inward pathway. And how cool is that? What you shared about, you getting aware and just taking an action, which leads to more and more and more possibilities. And so, wow. So you've written a book about all of that. And so that'll be out
Yeah,
sometime.
actually sending it off as this is like the day that it was official. And I felt really good about it. And I thought it's so funny that I'm talking to you today because it feels like I wanted to mention it today, but it's still happening. So when I have more information about that, I'll be able to make that available.
Sure. Yeah. And why don't you share with our audience your website so that they can check you out, see what you've got for your offerings, and they
Sure.
can also check up because I bet you'll post about your book there when it's
I
available.
will. Yeah, I'm excited because it makes sense. I didn't know if it made sense as I was going along, but like I have said in the book, I went with the process because I knew it was divinely led, and it was a lot of fun. So it'll be there. But my websites are called helloinneryou.com. That's where you can find my podcast. There are links to all of my other things that I offer on that website. But if you're specifically looking for shamanic healing work, I have a website called sacredpurpleswan.com, and that's where all of that is listed. If you're confused by everything that I've just mentioned, just go to helloinneryou.com and you'll see the links there. But you'll figure it out if
Fantastic.
you're looking for something.
Yes, yes. We'll point them in the right direction too in the show notes and also in the video description.
Andrea, thank you so much for being able to give me the platform to share what I love to do. And this conversation was so easy. Thank you so much for making it that way.
Oh, well, it's a joy. It's a joy and honor. Thank you so much, Jill. And from myself and the team here at Beyond the Reiki Gateway, we'd like to say thank you to our listeners for all of your support, including leaving great reviews, becoming BTRG insiders, and sharing this show with your friends and family. Drop us a line at info@beyondthereikigateway.com anytime. Tell us what's on your mind and take great care. Until next time. Thank you again for joining me. Please check the description underneath this video to learn more, connect with us, and get some important information about your listening experience. Wishing you all the best until we meet again beyond the Reiki Gateway.